And that's right, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin. And Dan, Happy New Year, buddy. How you doing?
Happy New Year to you. And I was informed by some terrible news that some sports fans are in the New York area, in some parts of the New York area, are dealing with. Specifically, parts in the area that have cable vision will not be able to get the Knicks, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders because of some dispute. Which I at first I felt like, what the heck am I seeing that people that have cable vision complain they can't get the game? I said, doesn't Cablevision own the Knicks and Rangers? And I realize, oh yeah, that's right. He sold the company. He doesn't own it. Jim Dolan doesn't own it anymore.
Yeah,
So it's like so there are people specifically in the boroughs of Brooklyn and the Bronx cannot get MSG networks, and of course all of the Long Island and their territories cannot get MSG networks unless you're lucky enough to be in an area like yourself, like Scott Verizon. I know you got Verizon, so you're not affected by that, but I forget if some areas of Long Island can't get Verizon. So, but yeah, the areas that have Long Island and parts of New Jersey, I believe, and parts of Connecticut are also affected by this. So
yeah. Hey,
there's
Dan,
a
by the
lot
way,
of people.
hey, Dan, see if you can mess with your earpiece real quick. It seems like it's cutting in and out.
All right, you able to hear me a little bit better?
Say something real quick.
Testes 1 2 3. Testes 1 2 3.
Oh, that's a million times better.
Yeah,
There we go.
never mind. That's just a little nod to an episode of Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Of course. That's
Yeah,
much better. But
but yeah, those are the areas that are affected by this. As I was informed by someone living in one of those areas, they're affected by this. Essentially, are stuck without their teams. If you're a fan of any of those teams, they're stuck without that, especially at a worse time when the Knicks are actually putting up give, giving us a good team. So so don't be surprised if you live in one of the places that can get MSG network. You might end up finding someone who lives in an area that's affected by lives in a Cablevision area, knocking on your door because they want to watch the Knicks game or the Rangers game or whatever, or the teams that are on
yeah,
the network.
yeah.
They'll
Hey,
be
Dan, you
knocking
know
on your.
what? Dan, I don't know why the earpiece keeps cutting out. So you know what? What we changed before the show, just go back to the regular way because I don't know what the heck is going on right now, but it just doesn't sound very good at all. But yeah,
All right.
so unfortunately, you're right about that. We'll give you a second just to switch that over, and yeah, unfortunately, you're 100% right about what's going on with Cablevision right now, and it's just a shame that they're screwing over a lot of fans again. This isn't the first pissing contest we've seen between one of these companies and everything, and but
Yeah,
but you're
exactly,
100% right.
exactly. I could go with the history of that, and just like, even though I'll be watching games tomorrow and watching, I think tomorrow is the Rangers game, and I think whenever this next game, I will be my hearts will go out to the people in the areas that are fortunately do not have access to those games. Think about the people who are stuck because of a pissing contest, do
Yeah,
not have access to those games. Just remember that there are people that don't have access to the game, that are stuck, and that in the New York area, in certain parts of the New York area, not having access to these games. But I got a history of these dumb pissing contests that we've seen. I
yeah,
remember back at specifically these times I was affected by that. 2005, the I was affected for like almost a month or so, 2 months without MSG networks because of a dispute. When then Jim Dolan owned Cablevision, was upset that the Mets had was taking away all, pretty much leaving MSG useless during the summer, losing all his summer programming pretty much. That were announced they were going to start SNY the following season. So because of that, I missed the first month of the MLB. I couldn't get access on TV the first month of the baseball season that year, and with that I think it was Cold Time Warner back then. And that's now known as Spectrum. But yeah, for that whole month, I couldn't get access to the Met games. I think I went to a bar to watch the Met season opener that year.
Wow. Yeah, it really sucks for fans, but you know what, Dan? Definitely, they are getting a product. Unlike early in that 2005 season, what the Mets did, where they stunk early on. They came on at the end, though. But the New York Knicks are definitely giving their fans something to be happy about. Let's start off with the Knicks, Dan, because right now they're in the midst of an 8-game winning streak right now. They're as hot as we've seen this Knicks team be over the last few years, and it's coming off. They do have a game tonight. We'll get into that in a second, but they're coming off a very impressive weekend against, yes, a crappy Washington Wizards team, but it's good to see the Knicks go out, get 2 wins. They weren't easy either. The first one wasn't, at least. Jalen Brunson had to drop 55 points in a big Knick victory. 55 points, 9 assists. He dominated from tip-off in that game. What'd you think, Dan, of this big 136-132 overtime win led by Jalen Brunson?
That was an impressive win, and this whole thing does. I just got sent a really funny joke about this whole outage. All right, someone said probably the newest pickup line would be in Long Island for someone trying to use a pickup line in Long Island. Hey, I got access to the next game.
Yep. Well, you definitely would say that before you said the Rangers game. And then just to keep it rolling, the Knicks then on Monday night took it once again to the Washington Wizards down in Washington. Karl Anthony Towns going crazy, 32 points, 13 rebounds. What a game from Josh Hart, too, man. I feel like Josh Hart is so underappreciated with a lot of the stuff he does. But look at this. I mean, the guy's got a triple-double again, 23 points, 10 assists, and 15 rebounds. You don't see guys with stat lines like that too often.
Yes, you don't see that often, and this was just an impressive win that just I feel like maybe not much of a heart attack win, which is kind of nice to get, nice to see for once. Sometimes, especially with basketball, the Knicks get a win that isn't such a heart attack inducing one.
Yeah, you don't have to sweat it out. You don't have to worry about it. The Knicks led pretty much for most of that game, stretching their lead to 20 there at the end. That was great. And then they line up tonight for another kind of a cupcake game that they should win, but you can't take anybody lightly. It is the NBA. This is professionals. Nobody would have thought, as we're going to get into, your Giants getting a big win the other day. So you can't say that the underdog is never going to win. But this is a game that the underdog should not win at Madison Square Garden tonight. The red hot 23-10 8-game winning streak New York Knicks look to push it to 9 games in a row tonight against the 7-24, obviously rebuilding and not very good team Utah Jazz. What do you think about the Knicks' chances of keeping the winning streak going tonight, Dan?
I feel good about this. I feel good that they're gonna keep this winning streak going. Keep it going. Keep this winning streak going. I have something to celebrate about during the winter, and and to be able to brag to some Knicks fans in areas that can't watch the game. Say, yeah, I got to watch this game.
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be a big test too, because the Knicks have to stay focused. This run of as we said earlier, cupcake teams, or to take a line out of the Keith Hernandez textbook, the second division teams, that's going to come to an end after tonight, as the Knicks play the Utah Jazz tonight, but the competition steps up quite a bit on Friday night as the Knicks go on the road at 8 o'clock to take on the 27-5 Oklahoma City Thunder. So that is a supremely talented team that's on a 12-game winning streak right now of their own. And they have Isaiah Hartenstein. We all remember him from the Knicks last year. He was a fan favorite coming off the bench that really came into his own. Got a big money deal from from Oklahoma City this past this past summer, and he's playing great, and the team's playing great right now. So Friday night in Oklahoma City, 8 p.m. That's going to be a big time game.
Yep, exactly. It's gonna be a big time game. Nice little start to the weekend, and we'll see how it turns out. It's gonna could be a heart attack inducing one. And at this point, they might as well sell defibrillators with sports team logos on it.
Yeah, man. Well, Friday and Saturday is going to be tough games. I mean, Friday obviously the much tougher Oklahoma City Thunder, but then Saturday they're going to be in Chicago as well to play the Bulls. And not that the Bulls are that great of a team, but it's always tough playing back to back. The Bulls are 15 and 18, so while they're not a top tier team, they're also not a second division team, as Keith would say. But this is something that does come in handy though, because after they get Friday and Saturday out of the way, the Knicks only have two road games left for the rest of this month, because this whole month is pretty much going to be played out at Madison Square Garden for this team. A chance to really pick up that home court advantage. Knicks play 11 of 15 games in January at Madison Square Garden. They're 10-4 so far at home. And as you can see in the graphic, that's tied for the second least home games so far this season in the NBA. I just went through the schedule before, me and you went live, and I saw only one team had played 13 home games so far. I forget which team that was. I believe it was a Western Conference team, but that was the only other team that had played less than the Knicks. So very interesting, and a chance to really get hot in the standings here now, right?
Yeah, exactly, and hope they keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it's going to come down to. They have it laid out in front of them. Now they just got to take care of business here in January, and I think this team, hopefully at the end of the month too, being rejoined by Mitchell Robinson. Let's not forget he was originally slated to come back sometime around Christmas. That got delayed. They're saying late January, maybe even early February. So still, that is on the horizon that the Knicks are going to be getting him back in the next month, and that could be a big piece going forward.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a big piece. Hopefully he comes back. Because I've been through this road with are these guys going to come back? Are these guys going to come back? And then it just goes, and they just barely. You're even lucky if they even come back for a little bit at the end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's 100% true. We've seen it 1,000 times before. And Dan, you know what? We'll get that is as good a transition as any, as we're gonna have to turn our attention right now, unfortunately, to our very crappy New York Rangers team, which is also dealing with a major injury right now. You texted me yesterday, much to my chagrin, to let me know that our star goaltender Igor Shesterkin's been placed on IR with an upper body injury. That means he's going to be missing due to the way the Rangers' schedule breaks out. He's only now 100% guaranteed to miss the next 3 games. But we all know how that's going to happen. This could drag on. Who knows what they're going to do? But they placed him on IR. They called up old friend Louis Domingue, who was a postseason rival a couple of years ago. Came up last year, played pretty well in limited availability. But the main thing is Igor to the IR. Dan, what was your reaction when you saw that yesterday?
Yeah, I was going to say, of course it couldn't. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I find out Igor's on the IR with an upper body injury. Have no clue what that is because hockey's weird that they don't give you the specifics. So I can't quite give a gauge on how long this guy's gonna be out by upper body. So it's
Yeah,
not like
that's
it's not
true.
like it's not like baseball where like you hear a guy they injured their hamstring. Oh yeah, their hamstring. Yeah, yeah, we know this guy. This guy's gonna be out a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Like you get an injury and you become a habit idea how long they're going to be out. Yeah, that's another weird thing that seems to happen a lot with professional sports. All of a sudden, everyone who's a fan all of a sudden becomes a doctor. All of a sudden, because how much they hear about this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and but also too, it's funny that you say that because you almost do become a obviously unlicensed low grade doctor when you're a sports fan, because let's be honest, if we see a guy, as you mentioned, on the Mets run a ball out, and we see him grabbing his hamstring, pulling up at first base, what's the first thing we're going to say? Uh-oh, it's a hamstring. And then what's the next thing we're going to say? Well, how long is he going to be out? And based off what we've seen, we would know, okay, maybe, like you said, 3 weeks, but in a month he'll be back. Like, he'll be back to normal in a month now if they treat this right. In hockey, with these upper body injuries and lower body injuries and stuff, you have no idea. That's a really good point, because we don't know what the thing is. Could it be he's got some kind of neck issue? Could it be he's got one of his arms or his shoulders are banged up, a chest thing? Who the hell knows? So if they're placing him on IR and now guaranteeing that he's going to be out for the next week or two, it must be serious enough if they're taking this step.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing we did know in terms of hockey injury wise during the COVID times, when you had players out with COVID, we kind of knew, like, usually when we knew players that didn't look like they were injured or anything when they were out, even though it was very discreet about if players had COVID or not, we knew, unless they announced it, we knew. Yeah, he was out with COVID. Like, we knew that kind of was
Mm-hmm.
easy to figure out. I don't know if you remember how easy that was to figure out some at times when a player was out with COVID, but that
Oh
was
yeah,
always easy. That was always easy to figure out. And by the way,
yeah,
I personally hated that at the time, because there were times that a coworker invited me to games, and that coworker had to rely on refunds because games were getting postponed left and right, with players on the opposing team out with COVID. That always sucked. And
yeah,
it happened
yeah.
twice.
No
It
doubt
happened
about it.
twice. It happened twice that the person just said, "I give up. I'm just going with the refund." Because it's like, he
Yeah,
says, how many times is he going to do this? Like, have tickets, and then it even happened to my own brother when he was in New York. Excited to get
mm-hmm.
tickets, and then all of a sudden, mm, the
Yep.
he said he'd get tickets, and all of a sudden he finds out the opponent half the opposing team had COVID, and the game got postponed. So it was like, what the hell could he have tickets? And that's got to be even worse when you get someone that travels out of town or overseas to go to the game when that should happen. But that was the only time I feel like we knew, like, why a player was not in the game that day on a given day.
Yep. Well, we know that for sure Igor is going to be out for some time, so that's not a good thing. And the last game we saw him in, though, was this action on Monday night, where the Rangers ended up losing to Florida again. This losing streak just continues. They came down in the first 10 minutes. They were down 2-0, really, before you even blinked an eye. It was 2-0. And now look at that record, man. 16, 19, and 1. They started off 12, 4, and 1. I mean, that means that the Rangers are in a 4-15 stretch right now, and they're not taking these games to overtime. These games aren't close for the most part. I mean, the Rangers did have about a 5.5 minute stretch. Uh, I forget if it was even in the second or the third period of this game, where I said to myself, "Holy cow, this team's actually finally starting to play some hockey." But then, of course, the next shoe dropped, and a goal was scored, and then another goal was scored when the goalie was pulled at the end, and that was it. It was just another loss. And I just don't understand, Dan. This is as perplexing a situation as I've ever seen with any of my teams I've ever rooted for, because it's not like if they came out of the gate and sucked, and if they came out of the gate and instead of being 12-4, they were 4-12, and it was just clear that this was, oh man, well, I don't know what happened, but the switch flipped in the offseason, and this is a crappy team now. It's not a good team anymore. That happens sometimes. Teams differ year to year. Sometimes you have good years, sometimes you have bad years, and that happens sometimes. But this team started off good. They were 12-4-1, and it wasn't until the leak came out in the first week of November, right around there, that Chris Drury wasn't happy with a couple of guys' performances, and that specifically Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider's name were whispered to be out there on the trade block. Ever since that moment, everything changed. And this is as angering a situation as I've ever seen. It's almost like these guys don't have any pride for themselves. They don't have any pride for the coach because let's face it, the first guy that's going to be a casualty of this war is going to be Peter Laviolette. And that's a joke because Peter Laviolette's a good coach, and it's not his fault that his team is this spineless to give up on him and the fan base like that.
Yeah, I know. It just sucks that this happens, and it's just like still scratching my head when I realized like last year, like we had the season we did, and all of a sudden it's just become just horrible, and it's hoping we get a top three pick in a lottery. At this rate, it feels like it'll turn out.
Yeah, right now they feel that bad. And it feels like there's no end in sight. It feels like these guys just do not care at all. Now, I know a couple of guys care on there. I know Will Cooley seems to care. I know Vincent Trocek seems to care. Artemi Panarin seems like he's still playing pretty hard. A lot of these other guys, I don't know, man. I just don't know. And it's a shame. It's
Yeah,
it's a real shame.
I know. It's like what the heck happened? It's like just scratching my head,
Yeah.
seeing this, and it's a disaster. And I believe our next game is. Hold on. I believe our next game is tomorrow. If I'm correct.
Yeah, it is tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yep, it's gonna be tomorrow, and probably gonna have to rely on that Belgian lady that sometimes shows up in 12s or 24 packs named Stella.
Yeah, that's going to be the only remedy for this situation.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the way this Rangers season is going.
yep, and believe me, there's a 12 pack of Stella in the fridge.
Yep, yep, and there's gonna be a couple of Stellas left after that game tomorrow. Now, Dan, let me ask you this question. I know a lot of people don't think this is the case, but because apparently Dolan is a big fan of this guy. But if the Rangers keep losing, is Chris Drury going to be on the hot seat? Do you think there's a chance that he could lose his job too?
I can't see that. I feel like maybe that could happen because I feel like he failed to pull some trades that maybe would have had this. I feel like the season could have been different. Like that
Yeah.
trading Jacob Trouba should have happened during the off season.
And then it wouldn't have gotten so messy in the regular season, and then it wouldn't have bled into the season.
Yeah, exactly. Just would have given us maybe some key players would have been on our team. They could have had something like a Jake Gunsel. Could have had a John
Yep.
Tavares on our team.
Yep.
Which,
And if
but,
they
which, but,
and if they were going to trade Capo Caco anyway, they could have just included him in the trade to Pittsburgh last year and gotten Jake Gunsel. So it's just ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just turned out to be a complete disaster. And I just scratching my head. So what the
Yeah.
heck
And,
happened here?
and now when you look at the standings, uh, the Rangers sit alone in last place in the Metro Division, even when they sent the letter out. Even when the Rangers were, rebuilding and they were a crappy team and David Quinn came in and they were trying to straighten everything out, it was a bunch of young guys. Even then, the Rangers were not this bad. That's what's so upsetting about this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even remember them being this bad when they sent the letter out, and I feel like at that time they sent the letter out that team just completely fell out of contention with a long losing streak. Like the longest losing streak I had ever seen as a Rangers fan was that around the time that letter was sent out.
Yeah. And it's turning into this one right now, man. It's crazy seeing the Rangers sit in last place of the Metro just about halfway through the year. It's really, really a disgrace. And I just feel bad for Peter Laviolette. Peter Laviolette doesn't deserve this. And I feel like Chris Drury and his team both failed him this year.
Yeah, I just feel like that, and you might see something that you really should not be seeing in April and May and maybe potentially in June. Me clean shaven.
Yeah, unfortunately, That means no playoff beard. So unfortunately, that seems like that could be a case this year.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's not that's something you ever want to see me during playoff time is clean shaven.
yeah, man. Well, it's about to be playoff time. It's funny you say that because we're about to get to the second half of the show now. There's not too much baseball, so we're gonna wrap up talking some football here now. As we're getting into postseason now, playoff time for our football teams, which neither of our football teams will be participating in once again this year. Um, my Jets for the 14th consecutive year. Your Giants back-to-back years now out of the postseason, and just terrible as the Jets and the Giants now prepare for the final weekend of their season. Week 18 now in the NFL is coming up, and Dan, let's start off with talking about your Giants. And the Giants, the big story in the NFL this weekend was the Giants holding the number one pick going in, and the big story coming out is the Giants blowing that opportunity, or at least a very clear path to that opportunity. Um, it's still within grasp. If things break the Giants' way, they could still get it. But a big 45-33 victory over the Colts at MetLife in their season finale at home. Um, that kind of complicated the path there. Dan, I know it was you know, conflicting emotions watching this game, but how'd you feel coming out with a 45-33 win?
I don't know why. I mean, the Giants have been so bad that this season at the end it just felt like very rarely that I'm silent at this point of the season, and that kind of happened. And I'm seeing this saying, "Oh," I'm like gonna get a little bit like, "Ugh," and at the same time looking like, "Oh my god, we're losing." Here goes our chance at a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
The kid Cam Ward or there's Sanders, one of the two, and we bet. And the only chance our hope is that we tanked and the scenario works out enough that we at least get the number three. And what's I don't even know what the circumstances needs to play out for us to at least get the third round, I mean the number three pick.
yeah, yeah. It's true. Well, I mean, right now the Giants aren't even sitting at number three. The Giants blow the number one pick. That's the story we're talking about right now with their win. But as a matter of fact, right now the Giants sit. Um, where
I
is
think
it right now?
I
I
think
have
they
the
said number
graphic up
four.
here. The Giants sit, yeah, number four currently. Um, but they are tied with everything. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it too, with the strength of schedule using all 17 opponents' record, type deal. And right now, the Giants for that have the best of those four, which is not good. The Giants would need to have a work like that's why New England's at number one right now because their strength of schedule is 467. Like you see the Jets all the way down at seven. They have 500. So if the Jets and Giants end up tied with the same record, the Jets will actually get the nod and have a higher pick because the Jets' strength of schedule was weaker than that. Um, so a lot went into that Cleveland ended up losing their fifth straight game in a game where they just didn't try at all to win against the Miami Dolphins. And New England loses again, Tennessee loses again, and it's a four-way tie at the top for the worst record in the league. But New England with that number one overall pick, Dan. So, what do you think about where the Giants sit right now? And do you think that they still have a chance to get, one of those top quarterbacks?
Maybe they do because Saquon Barkley looks like he's gonna try to break that record.
Well, no, they actually said that Saquon is going to sit next week against the Giants, and he's
Uh,
not.
Oh,
They're not even going to try to play him.
fuck you, Eagles. Fuck the Eagles. That's all I gotta say to the Eagles. Fuck you and your disgusting animalistic fans.
Wait, hold on, Dan. Say what's it called? Let me get this out of there, and then I want you say that one more time to the Eagles fans.
Fuck you, Philadelphia Eagles, and your disgusting animalistic idiot fans. Because of course they want to screw.
Oh, whoops. Sorry, pulled him out of there.
Of
What'd you
course
say,
they
Dan?
want to screw. Of course they want to screw us over, just like that draft a couple of years ago when they traded up at the last second. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember that NFL draft. I forgot the name of the white receiver that was going to be like the guy that was going to really elevate us to another level. And then I'm watching the draft, all excited, oh, we're next. And then all of a sudden the trade up, and I just turned the TV off. I rage turned off the TV. I ain't watching this because I said there isn't anything excited about for this one. There goes our future, I said.
Yeah.
I
Well,
said
Frankie.
I forgot, and it said this is just having, and I think I forgot what happens. I think the Giants need to lose, and New England needs to lose for us to get at least number three. If I'm correct, right?
Yeah. Well, like you said too, it's gonna be tough next week. Giants, Eagles, big game. And the Eagles, they're not gonna be playing a lot of guys. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is gonna be starting, but I know they said Saquon's not gonna go. Which, by the way, I think is a stupid move. The guy's 100 yards away from the all-time NFL rushing mark for a single season. So I think it's kind of dumb they're not starting him. But for the Giants, though, that win that did kind of hurt your draft chances. It did end your 10-game losing streak, which that does at least feel a little bit good, I guess. And it is the Giants' first home win. The Giants would have had the Giants lost that game. They would have been the first team to ever go 0-9 at home ever. And it would have been the Giants' first winless home season since they went 0-7 at home in 1974. So they did avoid some dubious history there.
Yeah, that's true. But I would have taken the historic lows to get us on that path to greatness again. I would have gladly traded that. All right. That Fortunately they couldn't. The Giants couldn't do the tank right the way another franchise did that. If you remember a couple of years ago with the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers pretty much intentionally tanked. Like it was like their thing. Like they were obsessed with tanking, pretty much to get LeBron James. Like they pretty much tanked to get LeBron James.
Yeah, they did. It was 20 years ago, and it didn't even work out until he came back. So tanking doesn't always work out. Look at the Philadelphia 76ers. How they tanked, they were sticking to the plan, they were doing all this crap, and they can't even get out of the first round. The Sixers stink. So tanking works sometimes, but most of the time tanking doesn't work. And
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and when a few times it does work because there isn't a draft lottery, maybe the NFL works a little bit better.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, but yeah, man. So let's wrap up here. We're gonna wrap up with the Jets now on our last thing. You know, the Jets just once again out Jets themselves this past week, 40-14. And the Jets were down 40-0 at one point in this game. Aaron Rodgers trailing 40 points in a game for the first time in his NFL career. Um, you know, it just is par for the course for this awful season. Jeff Ulbrich coming out and just making a fool of himself once again, getting completely outcoached. And that's aside from the stuff that he says in his press conferences where he puts his foot in his mouth and looks like an idiot. Like when he said that Hassan Reddick was the least selfish player he's ever coached. Give me a freaking break about that. The guy that held out for the first 7 weeks of the season and screwed his team over for more money is the least selfish player you've ever coached. Give me a break. He said some other dumb things this week, but it's not even worth talking about. The guy's going to be gone probably on Monday anyway, as he should be. And that's going to be it. The Jets were down 40-0. I also love hearing the people. The Jets scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter with Tyrod Taylor and his backup. So you get the geniuses saying that Tyrod Taylor, who's a middle tier quarterback that can't stay healthy, they want him to be the Jets quarterback next year instead of Aaron Rodgers because of this. But by the way, people, the Buffalo Bills pulled all their starters at that point. He was playing their backups. That's the only reason they drove down the field and scored that easily. Like it's like people don't understand football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And to top it off even worse, next week could be Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL potentially.
It could be. I don't think it is though. What do you think, Dan? Do you think it's going to be his last game? I think if I had to bet right now, I'm gonna, and I hope I'm right about this. I think the Jets are gonna bring him back next year, but I think even if they don't, he plays next year. But I think the Jets are gonna bring in a veteran coach that sees the value in having a guy like Aaron Rodgers around, and I don't think they're gonna make the same mistake that they made 15 years ago when they let Brett Favre go for nothing to Minnesota and punch their ticket to the NFC Championship game. So, what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I can't see them making that mistake. I can't see them making that mistake, and they're gonna have to rely on a year of Favre and draft a, I guess, an understudy of a quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. Also, too, real quick, I heard some speculation earlier today about the Jets possibly trading for because as you see in Minnesota, um, they've had a breakout season from a former Jet, a guy I'm very happy for, um, Sam Darnold, former number 3 overall pick of the New York Jets back from 2018. I was always a fan of Sam. He's a far better quarterback than Zach Wilson, but got far less help. Um, I'm happy to see Sam, but that creates a problem with the Minnesota Vikings. So a lot of people are saying the Vikings, who drafted J.J. McCarthy in the number 10 spot last year, are going to trade him because Sam had a breakout year. They're going to have to pay him. He's going to be a free agent after this year, so somebody's going to pay him. But I heard people bring up J.J. McCarthy to the Jets as a possibility to, whether he comes in and starts next year or maybe he's Aaron Rodgers' understudy for a year. To me, if I feel like JJ McCarthy would be a perfect fit for the Giants. I feel like even if the Giants wanted to next year, because next year is going to be a transitional year. So let's say the Giants stay in the 4 spot, right? Let's say the Giants don't get one of those top 2 quarterbacks. So how about drafting the best player available so you get one of the top guys out there? And then after that, trading for JJ McCarthy from Minnesota. Would you be open to that?
I'd be open for that if salvaged something to be excited about.
Do you remember much about JJ McCarthy? Would you be excited for him to be your quarterback next year?
I don't remember how he fared.
Well, I mean, because he's been hurt this year, so he hasn't played at all. But do you remember him from college or as a prospect?
Yeah, I heard he was a decent prospect in college. So
Yeah, yeah.
and
I mean, and the guy got drafted number 10 overall last year, so he's got to
yeah,
have some
yeah, yeah,
value, right?
yeah, and I think he came from a place, that has a reputation for producing quarterbacks.
I forget where he got drafted from. I forget what school he went to.
Yeah,
Hold on
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah. I
second.
got, I
I'll
got,
find
I
out.
got to check that one because that's gonna be a whole big telling thing about what I can expect.
Let's see. JJ McCarthy went to Michigan. So
Yeah. So there's probably gonna be definitely a good chance. All right, it's Michigan. All right, they produce some great quarterbacks. All right, they freaking produce freaking one of the greatest players in the history of the NFL. They produced, I mean, as much as we dislike him, but you do gotta respect him. That Tom Brady came from Michigan.
yeah, and Harbaugh was the coach there too. So Harbaugh, is a good quarterback. So the fact that he worked with him shows that the kid's got some good, genes there. So it would be a good move for the Giants if that was on the move, or the Jets, whoever was in position to pick him up. Because I do think that Minnesota is going to have to make a decision there, and I don't understand how you could have Sam Darnold have the type of year he just had at 27 years old, by the way. It seems like he's been in the league for 10 years. He's only 27. Guy's got a chance to get paid now and have a big year. So it's going to be interesting to see the decision they make. But just to wrap up on everything here now, the Jets final game of the year coming up this weekend. Coming up Sunday, Jets hosting the Dolphins at MetLife for the season finale. Um, Dolphins come in 8-8, Jets 4-12. Um, Final game here. Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are still technically in it, but they'd have to have a lot break their way to make it. And as a Jet fan, nothing would make me happier than squashing the Dolphins in the final week of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep, I know what you mean exactly. So definitely could be an intriguing game. As always, it's this next week's going to be another easy show, as because both our teams have been not doing so well. We get an easy team that both teams are playing 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
That's right. That's right. So if you want, check out. We always do our Patreon post game show, so that'll probably be Sunday at around 5 p.m. or so, recapping the Jets and the Giants final games of 2024. So it's gonna be big because there's gonna be a lot of decisions. Now I'm sure nothing is gonna be announced that day, but they always say the day after the final game of the NFL season is Black Monday in the NFL because all the head coaches and GMs and everybody get fired. There's a lot of job openings, a lot of pink slips being handed out, and we already know on the green side of MetLife, they're going to be looking for a new head coach, and they're already in the process of looking for a new GM. On the Giants side, though, Dan, I don't know. What do you think? Are the Giants still have not made a solid announcement one way or another? But if you ask me, that points to the direction of I don't think Joe Shane or Brian Dable are going anywhere. I think John Mara is sticking with both those guys.
I just have a feeling they're going to be fired, and they should be.
Well, what makes you say that? Because all signs right now are pointing to that not happening.
I just feel like that it's been disastrous. They failed big time in the offseason to get a real quarterback last offseason, so I just feel like it's just disastrous, and I just feel like it's going to happen, even though it's not. I just gotta hope it turned out for the better, and hopefully, maybe we see what maybe Dayball will be a better coach with a real quarterback. That's what we gotta hope for.
Yeah, the thing is too, I still think Brian Dable is a pretty decent head coach. I think things got away from him the last couple of years, but I also think that this roster absolutely turned to shit because of Joe Shane. Joe Shane did not do any favors for Brian Dable and keeping Shane around. I just don't understand how you can. I can understand if you want to keep Dable. I don't understand how Shane can stay. But the fact is, if you fire one, both have to go. And yeah, I don't know what the Giants are going to do, but it looks to me like they're going to keep both of them because I keep hearing people say that they still have these two guys scouting potential prospects for next year's draft, and you're not going to have these guys still doing that if you're planning on firing them in 3 days. So it's going to be really interesting to see the way this plays out because there's going to be a lot of unhappy Giant fans if those guys aren't fired, and the Giants are really going to have a big offseason and make every right move if they're going to win people back for not firing these two guys.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like they need to have a big off season, and they need to at least make the playoffs next year to satisfy the fans' opinions about Dayball and Joe Shane.
And yeah, and at this point, I don't know how that's going to happen because the Giants probably have one of the worst rosters in football right now. It's right up there with the Oakland Raiders. I mean, with the Vegas Raiders, who the Raiders even probably have more bright spots in their roster than the Giants at this point. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Mara internalizes all this because big moves are going to have to be made one way or another, and fans are going to not be happy if that's not the case. But yeah, all right, man. So we're gonna see big upheaval with the Jets. We're still not sure about the Giants, but one way or another, at 4 o'clock on Sunday, the book will be closed on the 2024 NFL season for our New York Jets and New York Giants. Unfortunately, one of the worst years we've ever had here in New York, even with last year being another bad year too. So we're going to see that, Dan. But I think that's going to do it for us today on today's show, our New Year's Day edition of Best Seat in the House podcast. Hope everybody is hanging out and having a great end of your holidays if you're still off. If not, I'm going back to work soon too, so it's going to stink, but that's life. So, Dan, before we get out of here, do you have anything to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account Bobo103NYC, Instagram Bobo718DK, it's same username on Threads, and YouTube. It's one word, Daniel Curl. And also remember, subscribers to our Patreon get early access to our show to our show 1 day early. Get early access all to my YouTube videos. 2 weeks early access to my YouTube videos. And then you get Trackside Minute upcoming up, and a couple of weeks away from NASCAR season. It's got upcoming up February, so you get Trackside Minute, so you get all that content.
That's right.
So
And don't forget that yeah,
and don't forget it's a $5.
that's right. And don't forget that this past Monday, I think, whatever, a day or two ago, we put out our best of 2024 edition of Best Eating House podcast episode. So go take a trip down memory lane and see all of our, some of our favorite moments from last year. So that's going to do it for us today, everybody. Want to thank everybody for hanging out with us for the first edition of Best Eating House podcast here in 2025. For my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is Best Eating House podcast, and we'll catch you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend and Happy New Year.